Setting it up. Hello, and welcome to our broadcast. This is the Sleep and Creativity panel discussion. And we are here with an amazing group of people. I'm so excited to introduce you to them. And we are going to be talking about, our personal journeys and our creative journeys. So without further ado, let me see if I can get some slides up here. And please bear with me. I'm a little bit new to this using Zoom meetings with Facebook Live. So I hope this is going to work fantastic. And I appreciate your patience. The technology gods have not been in our favor this sleep-in, but we are still thankful to be connecting as much as we can as technology will allow this weekend. So I'm going to get started by sharing. Let me see if I can. Oops. Get these slides up. So we have this discussion today. This is our amazing panelists. And we're going to go around quickly and introduce ourselves and share. Everyone's going to share their favorite childhood bedtime story book and also a creative influence of theirs. And I know that they said that that was a really hard thing to choose. I think as a creative person, I'm sure everyone has many influences. So I'll go ahead and start. I'm Julie Flagar, and I am the president and CEO of Project Sleep. And I consider myself a writer. I'm not a speller, I will say that. I am a writer that can't spell, so I apologize for that, but I do love writing and I love art. I'm a big fan of art, I'd say. I was an art history major and I'm just like a super fan of artists and creative people that, and I think my journey with narcolepsy, with cataplexy very much led me to pursue my creative passions more than I probably would have. So that's why I'm really excited about this topic. And let's see, my favorite bedtime story, I'm going to go with Clifford books. If you have a baby and you're my friend, you will receive Clifford books probably. I named my first dog Clifford, and he was a small English red poodle, so kind of like an orange poodle, a mini one. And he never got big like Clifford, but I did write to Norman Bridwell, and I told him I had a Clifford too. And Norman Bridwell wrote me back. And he said that he was glad that my Clifford was real because his was only in his imagination. And that was pretty awesome. And for creative influences besides Clifford, I love Oliver Sacks. Dr. Oliver Sacks was a huge influence on my journey as a writer. When I read his book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, that book, I felt like I could be honest with my journey with narcolepsy and tell it like it was after reading what he had written about people with neurological conditions. So that's me. And let's go ahead and start with Elle. Elle is in Australia. Are you there?
Yep. So hi, I'm Elle. I'm a graphic designer and I run the page and website Falling Asleep, a narcolepsy guidebook. My favorite story, I don't really have one, but I do love to listen to like rain noises before I fall asleep. So I have like a special app that does that. And my favorite one is a specific one that's like the sound of rain from inside a car, which sounds really weird, but it's the best. And my creative influence, I think one of my greatest influences is probably this guy called Adam J. Kurtz, and he's like a graphic designer who does like, I don't know, a lot of like quirky little like quotes and like little hand-drawn drawings. But I think his work is really like, it's really good at taking like little slices of like everyday life and like little like, I don't know, they're kind of like, some of them are a little bit emotional or a little bit like funny or a little bit, you know, whatever. But I think it's really like great the way that he like manages to like, yeah, make them so relatable and yet so personal at the same time.
That's awesome. Do you share those a lot on your Instagram and stuff, or?
Not really. I don't really share a lot of like art stuff, I guess, but I probably should do.
I'll share some so we can see it. Cool. All right. Thank you, Elle. And Elle is special gold star to Elle because she is waking up early in Australia to join us. So thank you, Elle. Alana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Alana, and I am a social media manager for the Eilís Foundation. And I have a favorite personal bedtime story. When I was a child, I used to share a bedroom with my sister when I was younger, and I used to chat her ears off every night before bed. And so I would always ask her to share this bedtime story with me. And I'd always ask her how I got to have that little depression above my upper lip. She would say, "An angel put it there before you were born," she would explain. The angel would press her finger on your lips and say, "Shh, go to sleep now." And that groove is where her fingertip rested. Listening to that story was how I fell asleep most nights.
Aww.
And yeah, so it's really special. And my favorite writer currently is Susanna Cahalan. Her book is Brain on Fire, and I could really resonate with it. And it was just so neat because she shared like just her truth, and it was so raw. Like her book was completely raw and honest, and I just loved it. And I also love Marianne Williamson. Her books were really healing for me, and I just love the spiritual journey of Marianne Williamson. So.
And have you seen the movie, the Brain on Fire movie?
Yes, yeah, I loved it. It was really powerful.
Oh, good. I have to read the book and read them and watch the movie, I guess.
Yes, yeah, I really recommend them.
All right. Ciro, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ciro. I'm Project Sleep's creative director. I'm also in graduate school for visual arts, and I'm a potter. And my favorite children's book is Winnie the Pooh or Alice in Wonderland.
And your your inspiration?
My creative influence right now is someone from England named Edmund de Waal, and he's a potter and a writer, and he's writing this. I'm reading this book for school called The White Road. It's about porcelain, and a lot of my work is in this translucent porcelain. So that's interesting right now for me.
That's very cool. Okay, Brooke. Oops, I think she's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I knew I would do that. My name is Brooke, and my favorite children's book is from childhood. My grandma used to read me, and it's called I'll Love You Forever. And it was written by, I'm not gonna say this right, Robert Munch. But I really, really like it even today because it says, I love you forever and I'll like you forever. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much it's possible to love someone but not like them very much. So I love that book always emphasized on I'll love you forever and like you forever, especially with someone like myself, and I'm sure a lot of us, we feel like our family might love us a lot but not like us all the time because of the things that we have to miss, special events and stuff. And my most creative influence, also the person that read me that book, is my grandmother, because she wasn't artistically talented any more so than the average person, but she always did these paint by numbers, and she was self-proclaimed a bad artist and a bad painter, but she did it every day and loved it. And I just always kind of want to aspire to be more like her and able to do something. How could you do something every day and know that you're not that great at it but still love it? So she inspires me a lot. She's not with us anymore, but I think about her a lot whenever I do something that I don't feel like's that great. It doesn't really matter.
I love that. And what does your shirt say, Brooke? Let's nap. Perfect. And you tell us what you said your name, but I think you have a pretty cool little business.
Well, I didn't want to focus all on that, but I founded the Nap Nook. So I make napping pillows that are pillows that are comfortable and intended to be gifted to people to make them feel liked, not just loved, but just as a reminder that someone's out there.
And actually, I have to mention that my very first Nap Nook pillow was gifted to me. It isn't in the bed right now. It made it over to the chair because I had to put the sleep in one prominently this weekend. But Lisa, who is another one of our panelists, gifted me my first Nap Nook pillow. So it's very special. Okay, thank you, Brooke. And Michelle, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle Zagardo, and I am the founder and maker behind Lysande. And I put my grandma, like Brooke and I have actually talked about this. My grandma was an amazing textile artist, and most of what I know I learned from her. And Kate Spade. I love Kate Spade's really simple and clean, but also very bright and colorful aesthetic. And so that's something that has really influenced me. And then my favorite bedtime story is Jack and the Beanstalk. And my dad used to tell me and my brothers this story every single night, but he would do it in a way, he would tell it by heart. And so it was always like a little girl goes and gets 3 magic beans, and what does she do with them? And so like I was the character, and then it was like a build your own adventure thing. So every single night it was different. So that was my favorite bedtime story growing up.
I love that. And also I want to say, Michelle, you have made me more colorful. So I guess thank you, Kate Spade, via Michelle, because now I think I'm like way more zoned. I always love colors, but Michelle reaffirmed my love of certain colors. So thank you.
I'm glad to pay it forward.
I'm going to say your name correctly, I hope. Eilís.
Yes. So I'm Eilish. I always tell people it's like eyelash, but lish. That's like the only way I can describe it. So I'm an architecture student at Auburn University and also a graphic artist. And my current sort of inspiration that I've been doing a little bit of research on would be Alexander Brodsky and Ilya Utkin. They did a lot of sort of these etchings and graphics during the 70s in Russia, and they're really fascinating. They're like sort of part of this surrealist architecture that aims at trying to convey either social or psychological messages. They're just very, very interesting in terms of the built environment and then how people interact in the built environment. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Sometimes our minds create alternate built environments or situations for us to be in. So it's really, really interesting for me to be looking at that. And my favorite bedtime story, I know I have several, but I chose The Princess and the Pea by Hans Christian Andersen. I know my mom would read, I've got 3 sisters, and my mom would always read us like princess books and all this kind of stuff, and all these sort of like surrealist or fantastical books. And for me, someone who had horrible nightmares and all this kind of nasty stuff happening in my brain at night, I always wanted to read something a little bit lighter and funnier before I went to bed. So
I love that. Okay, so now I won't forget how to say your name. Eilish.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Now I have it. I look at your name a lot, obviously, because we talk, but then, yeah, all right, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Okay, last but not least, Lisa. Oh, I think you're on mute. Or sometimes when you, oh no, you were, keep talking. Oh no. I feel like we had this before once. And of course, also when you came to our video weekend and you had lost your voice, it's like it's meant that you're supposed to not have a voice, but we believe in your voice.
Now.
Yes, yes.
Yes? Okay. I'm going to keep saying now. Okay. You can hear me. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So favorite bedtime story. I chose The Little Prince. I'm not sure I actually ever remember it being read to me, but I definitely have read it with other people before bedtime. It's just one of my favorite stories. I just think the illustrations and the story are so perfectly matched. It's just such a sweet little bedtime story. I think you have to reread it over several bedtimes. I don't think you can get them all in one bedtime. but I guess that counts. I think so. And for inspiration, I actually chose the kind of artist director who really influenced me at the time of my narcolepsy getting really bad. So that was around 12, 13, I think, when I watched Edward Scissorhands for the first time. And I got really into Tim Burton and like stop motion films just because I loved the exploration of like uncanny visual and audio experiences that weren't as smooth as traditional animation. So I've always had Rex Bellington on my bedside table. So he was big influence at the time, especially when Narcolepsy was getting bad. So yeah, and I think officially I worked as a creative producer, so usually like video content, animation, live action, things like that. But nowadays I am mostly a obsessive doodler. I just doodle all the time and always have been.
You are creative in many ways.
I try to be, but it's mostly a tool for staying awake nowadays. So
Okay, well, I think we are having still a little bit of trouble with your screen, like now that you're maybe, but hey, we're gonna work through it. And we're gonna start with Lisa. I've asked everyone to talk a little bit about their personal journey and their creative journey. So, and everyone has some slides. So I'm gonna start with Lisa actually, and we're just gonna hope for the best here. Share hers. Hoping, I was explaining to the group that Lisa sent hers in PDF, and I'm sure I could be able to figure out how to put this into PowerPoint, but my brain this morning wasn't quite working that fast. So here we have her slides, and hopefully, Lisa, I'm going to try to see that we can be able to see you and hear you. Okay. Take it away.
Okay. So actually, it's actually going a bit backwards with this order of slides, but that works out quite well because I went into a creative career mostly because I really struggled to read at school, and I just thought it would make so much more sense to work with my hands because I love to do that. So I kind of just launched straight in doing lots of film production work, working as a model maker, like a storyboard artist, and pretty much learned mostly on the go. Did a bit of studying, but it was actually just being on lots of productions with really interesting people that I learned how to do creative things. And these slides kind of show the before and after on some of our productions. So most of the time I would be, I just making sunflowers, spending days making sunflowers, or managing little sets. Really, really cool, really stimulating stuff that would have you that would just be really good for wakefulness as well, because you're constantly trying to work out how to build something, work out how to defy gravity for a shoot. So it was a really good time for me after school to kind of get working in that field and be stimulated on so many levels. So that was really good fun. I think we go to the next slide.
Can I just say you're so amazing? I still can't see you for some reason, but yeah, I tried to pin you. Let's try to make you this spotlight video.
Oh,
if that helps.
As long as you can hear me, right?
Yeah, and if you can just speak up a little bit too.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can you hear? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so from working with very traditional media, I then started getting into things like virtual reality and augmented reality, social media. It was just a very like natural transition with work. The industry took me there, but I think it started to open my mind to what what was the point of art and what was the point of visual media, especially, which I spent so long trying to figure out. So I kind of went through that journey of technology and ended up ironically questioning everything about art instead, which has kind of brought me to where I am now, where I'm trying to get back to the very basics of why I wanted to do anything like that. And it all started with drawing. That was always the essence for me, was trying to map out my feelings or share my stories, and also to stay awake. So I always just drew all the time, and so I kind of tried to return to that very primitive medium in order to understand why we would need all these other things. So I still do a bit of assisting on productions for virtual reality and things like that, because I think it is a medium with a lot of promising opportunities for storytelling, especially if you want to try and immerse someone in the world of a character and really take them to that place. I found it to be quite an emotional medium if you do it right, and especially if you know the experience is so subtle that you need to take them there. So it's hard to explain, but if any of you've ever tried just putting on like a cardboard headset and looking around a virtual environment, it's actually pretty surprisingly effective to try to understand where someone's literally coming from. So that's why I enjoy that medium. And then I think on the last slide, we'll probably come back to how it relates to narcolepsy, because interestingly, I actually started experiencing symptoms when I was about 11, but didn't get a diagnosis until I was 23, and didn't really, I would say, properly deal with it until I was 27 or 28. So I went for a really long time having no idea that there was this very clear connection between what I was doing creatively and what I was experiencing personally. And I then realized I'd always had a sketchbook on me to document my nightmares or my hallucinations. And I've got tons of them. They're like scattered all over my bed. So let's see if I can show.
Wow.
Sketchbooks. So yeah, that's just like a ritual to always have that with me, because you know what it's like. Sometimes you forget things. You forget these bizarre dreams that you had or nightmares, and actually I find writing them down, drawing them, actually really helps me reflect on what I've been through, because you know it can be really traumatizing, and I think it also legitimizes the long-term need to be creative. I kind of look back and I go, wow, I really did need to get that down on paper or share it with someone. So it's been an amazingly effective tool for me, because it's been with stuff. So it's one of the few things in life that I would genuinely tell you I can't live without. I cannot go a day without drawing, I don't think.
So Lisa, did you draw this drawing in the middle here? You did that before you knew you had narcolepsy, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the really early ones. And then the
So
was when I started realizing, I was like, oh, I should probably try to communicate, you know, how people react to the fact that I have narcolepsy. So I did that comic. That was, I think, 2016 maybe. So it's kind of been interesting before and after, right? You've got the really raw pen drawing, which is where I've got no idea what's going on, and then years later, the kind of official interpretation. This is what it is. So yeah.
I love that. All right, Lisa, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you wanted to add before?
No, I don't think so.
All right, you're amazing. And if you guys haven't seen, Lisa's amazing videos, we did feature some of her cool art in her Rising Voices of Narcolepsy videos. Lisa participated as a speaker last summer in our program and was featured in the video series. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. And let's see, hoping that this is all working, sort of. And we'll go back to these slides. Okay. Eilís.
Eilish.
Take it away, my dear.
Okay, so kind of what you're looking at right now on this slide are the first sort of iterations of my expression artistically with narcolepsy. So I was diagnosed in 2017 during my second year of architecture school. But I've sort of always understood that there was something that was different. I shouldn't say wrong, but different about my sleep experience and the way that I experienced sort of the world in a way, I should say. I've always had horrible nightmares, like forever, for as long as I can remember. Incredibly vivid dreams, and I was always really sort of paranoid about the things that I saw in my dreams sort of coming into my real life. And as a child, it was really hard to distinguish between what was real and what wasn't, especially because as someone who's creative, I already kind of think in that mindset. So when I started architecture school, I had my first cataplexy attack my freshman year. Had no idea what it was, didn't know what was going on. And then finally by my second year of school, I was like, I really think that something is medically happening here, like neurologically. So I had a sleep study, and without a shadow of a doubt, I had narcolepsy. I had the MSLT, and I fell asleep in all of the naps, and I had sleep paralysis during 2 of the naps. And it was sort of like a really big moment for me where it was really crystal clear that I had this really sort of textbook, almost really sort of severe in a way case of narcolepsy that the sleep specialist that I saw hadn't seen in a while. So that was really interesting to me because I had done research very quickly and had the test very quickly, although my symptoms and everything had been so prolonged. But getting diagnosed was very quick once I started the process towards it. So shortly after that, I started translating some of that into graphics. So I took these 2 photos out in my front yard. I remember specifically I had been feeling frustrated because I had come home from school on break. And I was just sleeping all day, and I wanted to hang out with my family. School is in Alabama and I'm from Chicago, so it's very far, and I just wanted to hang out with my sisters, and all I could do when I got home was sleep. So I kind of went outside and just started photographing and printed out the pictures and started sketching over them, sketching these little scale figures on them, because in our architectural drawings, we have to draw little scale figures to understand how the building looks for a person and all this kind of stuff. So I just tossed some scale figures into it. And that's sort of where this evolved. And on the next slide is sort of an image of me during the MSLT. I know my mom was really fascinated by the whole sort of infrastructure of understanding the test and everything. So she took this picture of me, and I remember I was just feeling really excited to finally have some answers about sort of what had been going on with me for as long as I can remember. But finally on the last slide is sort of where I'm at right now with these sort of dream sketches that I do. I document all of the dreams and stuff that I have in written words, so I write them all down. But most of what I do right now are these graphics, whether it's a representation literally of a dream or experience that I've had, or whether it's just me in class sort of trying to stay awake. I'll pull out my sketchbook and I'll sketch and doodle these in a lecture or something. And I always try and incorporate some kind of aspect of structure or something like that, because that's how I creatively emote sort of with architecture. So there isn't sort of any kind of plan or agenda for where I'm going to take these next. I'm just really happy with doing them, and it brings me a lot of peace and keeps me awake while I'm in class, sort of drawing all these lines and coloring them is what helps me focus as well. So it's coping and also a really nice sort of release. So
Okay, 2 points about that. So when I was in college, as my sleepiness started, I was not making beautiful drawings like this, but I was making cartoons of like the night before if we'd gone out, like our girlfriends, and I would do cartoons and I would draw everyone like from the night before. So you are way more sophisticated in your doodling. And then one other thing that you reminded me is that your sleep week, the happy sleep week,
Mhm.
I just love that. So you guys to check that out on Instagram, and we will try to copy it too and share it, because the figures are in different, like lying down versus standing up and in between, and it just really resonated with me, especially.
Well, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, we will share everyone's like Instagram and everything so you can connect with these amazing creators. All right. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, that's it. I'm excited that you really enjoyed that graphic. I haven't sort of put them in text before, but I agree. I really like the way that they're sort of interacting with each other, because that's what we're even doing right now and sort of what we experience through Project Sleep. So I was inspired by you to create that. So thank
Okay.
you.
Now I'm gonna blush. And I love it because I've seen actually people do some representations like narcolepsy art when they don't have narcolepsy, and I'm like, I don't get it, like, and so I just love it when people like you create stuff and it resonates because you understand.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm still getting your name wrong. Eilís or Eilish?
Eilish.
Eilish. Okay. All right. Kind of like delicious too.
Yeah.
Okay. Eilish. Okay. Thank you, my dear. And next we have, and I said your name wrong too. So I'm going to go Alana.
Yes, Alana. Yep.
Take it away, my dear.
Okay. So for the first 10 years of my life, I was completely happy and healthy, and I had a wonderful childhood. And then at the age of 10, I got Klein-Levin syndrome, which is also known as KLS. And KLS is a very rare neurological condition, which patients experience episodes of excessive amounts of sleep, sleeping anywhere from 15 to 23 hours a day. We live in a semi-conscious state. We experience short-term memory loss, derealization, not knowing if things are happening or if things are really real or not, and confusion, cognitive decline, and altered behavior. It's a really difficult condition, and episodes can last days, weeks, and even months long. There's even been a few patients that have had episodes over a year long, which I'm actually one of them that has had episodes last years long, over a year long. And in between episodes, patients appear to be normal, which is great, because we're not always 100% sick, and KLS comes and goes, so it's cyclical. And it took me 8 long years to get a Klein-Levin syndrome diagnosis. And at the age of 18, I finally got diagnosed with KLS, and I was finally able to plan my life accordingly. I was able to create new dreams and goals. So when I was younger, I just had a dream to become a professional tennis player or a tennis coach. But there's mild to severe cases of KLS, and unfortunately, I have a pretty severe case of KLS. So just focusing my energy on helping other people not feel so alone, and focusing my energy on raising awareness for KLS, raising funds for research, volunteering as a social media manager for the KLS Foundation. That's really helps develop into my passion, and it's a love of mine. I just love doing it. I've hosted tons of fundraisers. I created the first KLS awareness bands. I co-authored KLS Guidebook, which helps patients not feel so alone, and it helps just the community understand the whole gist of KLS. And just having KLS, it's really just inspired me to help people and to raise awareness, because I really believe that there's a lot more people out there living with Klein-Levin syndrome, but they just go undiagnosed because on average it takes 4 years to get a KLS diagnosis, and those undiagnosed years are the absolute hardest. So it's really critical for people to raise awareness for Klein-Levin syndrome and to raise funds. I've hosted KLS fundraisers, and I've also helped plan KLS conferences. So that's really, I just love the creativity and the social media too, part of managing the Facebook and the Instagram and the YouTube channel of the KLS Foundation. It's just developed into a passion of mine. And I just absolutely love it. I'm currently in the process of writing my memoir, which is very exciting. And
oops, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't know which slide you wanted me to be on.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Which slide?
That one. Yeah, raising awareness. Okay. Yeah. So I'm currently in the process of writing my memoir, which is I'm super excited about, and I recently sent it off to my editor. So hopefully I'll be able to get it out soon and into this world. And my hope is that my book will help people with chronic illness not feel so alone, and that it will also help family members and friends of people with chronic illness to never leave a fallen family member behind and to stick by their side. Because in life, I feel like it's so critical to not only be there for someone at their happiest and healthiest times, but to also be there for them at their sickest and worst times. And I really feel like as a society, we need to change that and have people be there for their loved ones during their worst times. And luckily, I have a very supportive family, and that's helped me get through this. And it's just, the last thing I want to say is that I just want people to know that if your life has been affected with a chronic illness or an unforeseen tragedy, that you can create new dreams and goals, and that you don't always have to take the traditional path. You can take a path less traveled, and that's what I've done. I graduated high school. I didn't go to college because I've had a very severe case. I'm sick pretty constantly, and during the episodes, you're basically in a semi-conscious state, unable to do school, unable to do anything. You're just completely bedridden. And so just when I'm healthy, I focus my energy on volunteering, and it's very rewarding work because I know it's making a difference and it's helping other people. And my goal is just to continue to get healthy and improve, and to help others not feel so alone, and to help raise awareness for KLS so others can get a quicker diagnosis, and to raise funds for research so we can find the cause and cure of KLS. And but I just want people to know that they can create new dreams, and that they can take a different path in life, and that they'll still reach their goals and dreams. And tennis is still a passion of mine as well. I do still love tennis. And my sister, she's actually the head tennis pro of Indian Wells, and there's a major professional tennis tournament called the BNP Paribas Open. And we get tickets every year, and I go all 2 weeks. Even if I'm in like a light episode, I'll still go up there. My parents will take me up. And there's one video of me playing with a professional tennis player last year. And then the picture on the right is with Nick Kyrgios. He's like the top 30. I'm sure if you're tennis fans, you know of him because he's a pretty awesome person.
Let's see if we can get the video. I don't know if it'll work, but we can try.
The intensity is crazy hot. Oh! Well played.
We're gonna have a tennis off, my friend. I think you'll beat me, but I love tennis too. So
Yeah, and if you're ever in the desert, I mean, we have extra ground passes and tickets, so definitely come, you know.
Thank you. I just love your message. I think you're such an amazing woman, and just the way that you articulated that. I remember my doctor told me that he said doing things that were creative or on your own schedule would be better with narcolepsy. And at the time I was in law school and I thought, no, like whatever, that's dumb. And now here I am doing, it is so true. And I've worked both full time, but I think what you said about taking a path less, whatever you said it better. You said it great. So that's a very powerful message.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Julie, for just having me and inviting me on. I'm super happy to be here. And you've inspired me. Like you're just, I love what you do. And you're just incredible.
Okay, now we're gonna move on then before I get nervous. Thank you, my dear. And I can't wait to read your memoir. So congratulations on getting it to the editor. I know what it takes behind the scenes to do something like that. And it's not easy. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and a little bit about the KLS Foundation. So it's an incredible, incredible organization. And I feel so lucky to get to communicate more now with them and Alana. Okay, Ciro, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ciro DiRuocco, and I'm Project Sleep's creative director. So my symptoms started probably when I was 16, but they probably manifested in different ways. Maybe I should go back and do an introduction. So my name is Ciro DiRuocco. I'm Project Sleep's creative director. I'm also in graduate school at the Vermont College of Fine Arts for visual arts. And yeah, I'm a potter. And so my work in visual arts centers around a lot of advocacy efforts, and narcolepsy and sleep awareness has been really important to my life and my work. And I really like what I've heard so far from the other panel about not taking the traditional path and finding success and achieving your dreams, what that looks like for you. I think that when I first was diagnosed when I was 18, I was in my senior year of high school. I didn't really understand what narcolepsy was. I had a really hard time accepting that that the reason I was tired all the time was because I had a chronic illness. So it took me the better part of 10 years to figure out how narcolepsy impacted me daily. And yeah, so that's when I was introduced to Julie at a Narcolepsy Network conference. And shortly after that, we started collaborating, and our first event that we did together was the Sleep In. And it's been really an honor for me to be in a supportive role of Julie and, to contribute visual art to Project Sleep and to raise awareness in Canada, in Vancouver Island, and now in Vermont. I've kind of lost my place here. But I guess I really wanted to talk about how frustrating it felt for me to try to explain how much narcolepsy impacted my life on a daily basis. Without meeting other people with narcolepsy, I really had a hard time with the vocabulary and the communication aspect of being able to communicate to the doctors what I needed or what I was experiencing. So it was really important for me to connect with other people who had narcolepsy so that I understood, I could relate more to what other people were feeling. And then in those experiences, I found a lot of inspiration, and it really did help me to inform my artwork, because I was coming from a place, I think that, Julie speaks so well and she speaks often. And so I really admire her and I really look up to her. And so if I'm going to do something, on the radio or the news, often she's there right before and she gives me a pep talk, and she gives me some key speaking points that if my brain, blanks out, that I have something tangible in front of me that I can relate back to. And I think that I tried to really remain objective about what my career would look like. because when I really sat down and I was objective about what was going on with me and my body, and like I felt like narcolepsy was a bigger deal to me than what I was told it was capable of doing. Like I was taking these medications and they supposedly made me normal, but then my roommates and my partner at the time had been telling me like, it's really hard for you to leave the house. You get really scattered, all these things that I thought that were just part of me. And then meeting other people with narcolepsy, I noticed that we had a lot of these same quirks or idiosyncrasies that I identified with. And so that was really important to me. And so I wanted to get a job in Seattle at a marketing firm, and I realized that I probably couldn't sit in 4 hours of traffic every day. I don't know how Julie did it for as long as she did. I really, really cannot even fathom what it would be like to be in LA traffic every day.
Fun.
So I kind of like sat down and I looked through this book and I was like, all right, what are jobs that I can do at home? And screen printing and pottery were two of the options. And so I really, when I switched from marketing to visual arts in university, I just focused my time in art school on creating this life that I needed, this life that I had control over when I worked and when I slept and when I ate. And if I'm in control of those things, or I have a say, and I'm accountable to myself, I can do really well. And so, but that doesn't necessarily fit into the 9-to-5 box for me. Like I wouldn't be successful in that environment. So it was really important for me and my self-confidence and my self-esteem to find a career that was flexible enough for me to be me at my best, and that I don't constantly have to explain to people what this is and what that's like. I feel like, I work in social media, and I work for a clay company in Canada, and I'm really honored to have the privilege to be able to share other artists' work in ceramics, and that my bosses have been really supportive and flexible and understanding with me, and I'm really grateful for that. And so does anyone have any questions? I'm kind of like blanking out right now.
Ciro, do you want to describe the pieces on the bottom of the slide here really quickly?
Okay.
They're really beautiful.
So a lot of my artwork that I made in university came from a place of need. So this picture of a lamp with this drawing behind it that's mixed media. I was really speaking to one of my professors, and it was really a direct message to her. Because we had this ongoing debate where I'd collapsed on the day before an exam, and so I'd missed the exam, and so all these questions of what exactly does a person with a disability, according to the province of British Columbia, what does that protect me? How does that protect me? And how is it that a professor can fail me for having a chronic illness? And so this was really like me shouting politely to her, being like, here I am, and I'm shining, and I'm not going away, and I'm just going to stand bright and smile and be kind and hope that the process, the grade appeal process, works the way it's supposed to. And it was really hard, and it was really trying for me. But I'm really awesome that I had Julie, and I had a really strong support group of people, like my mom and my sister and my grandmother and my friend Kendall and my roommate Paul. And it's really incredible when you're making work that's really vulnerable, and it's really scary to share it and to share the inspiration behind it. But like to feel like if you fell backwards, that your friends and family just have your back, and they'll catch you. And like, so for me, I feel like my artwork now is changing. It's more about material and place. So in graduate school, I've kind of like shifted directions where it's not so direct, the message. And I'm trying to make artwork that that isn't just based on my own narrative, that can be more inclusive of other people. So I'm trying to like make imagery and artwork that is that reaches a larger group of people with sleep disorders or substance abuse disorders, or I think of it as like advocating for people who may not have a voice. And I think something that I heard early on was another person with narcolepsy had mentioned in my blog that I shouldn't underestimate my contribution as a creative person to the narcolepsy community, and that by making this art and putting myself out there, it's helping other people. And so I had a really hard time understanding that at first, but I think it's a statement that I really come back to a lot when I'm feeling insecure or vulnerable about the work I'm making. So this work was actually, so it's a picture of me on a vase right here. And I fell asleep in contemporary art class. And the lecture that day was about street art. And people that know me or have seen my page, they know that like I'm really crazy about this, like brick walls and like textures and paintings and stencils, and it comes out for me in ceramics. But for me, this really talks about the powerless of what narcolepsy can do, because even though I had slept the night before and I had taken my medication and I really wanted to be present and I was in the front row of the classroom, I couldn't stay awake and I was really upset with myself. And so afterwards, I took a picture of me sleeping to remind me that I'm powerless over this condition, but that what I do tomorrow and tonight, meaning that like I was able to record all my lectures so that I could go back when I had gaps of automatic behavior or brain fog, that I could go back in my notes and I could hear the audio again. And so, I don't know, school is really challenging for me. I really love to learn. I really love art history. I love lots of different things. And so to be able to continue to be into graduate school now is really an honor.
Thank you, Ciro.
Yeah.
You are amazing. And I'm so grateful to work with you. I remember bringing the sleep-in idea to you and I felt vulnerable. I wasn't really sure, like I hadn't really shared it with anyone. I don't think it had the sleep-in. I don't think we had come up with that term yet, but I brought the idea to you. And I just remember exactly where I was sitting on a bench outside my friend's apartment and you just glowed. You were like, it's a great idea. I love it. And you just were so positive that I could believe in it. And so, and then to work with you and Kobe to come up with this beautiful logo that I remember I wore the shirt you made me one day at my last job at Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And the graphic designer that worked there said that was so beautiful of a logo, it could be for a mattress company. And I'm glad that it's not, and I'm glad it's our logo, but that was a big compliment. I'm just so proud of working with you and so proud of your work in general. So thank you, Ciro. Okay. Michelle, how are you doing? Are you there?
I am here.
Are you awake?
I am something.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to all these panelists, because a few people were a little bit sleepy. It's nap time for some people. It's late, it's early. So thank you for
kind of all over the place.
Take it away.
So my name is Michelle Zagardo, and I am the founder of Lysande, which I mentioned earlier. And so I have type 1 narcolepsy with cataplexy, and I was diagnosed, or my symptoms started really young. And actually, I don't remember a time when I wasn't deliriously sleepy or didn't have episodes of intense sleepiness. And so these are a couple of photos from early on. I was really interested as a young kiddo in both math and fashion design and wanted to do both of those things. And I would actually bookmark my pages in my Stephen Hawking's books with sketches that I had drawn. And I wasn't a very good artist, but it was just something that I absolutely loved to do. And sometime in high school, I think I decided to abandon the creative route because there was so much gray area in that. And I decided to I chose math over design or fashion because it was very finite and it was something that I could sit down and work on and be done with. And I knew I was sleepy, but I didn't know how to cope with it any way other than making these decisions. So these are my cats. I'm a very big cat person. This is me sleeping in New Zealand on my honeymoon, and this is my sleep study. So I was in graduate school working on my PhD in economics when I was just really, really, really struggling. I was sleeping under my desk and things were just not going as planned. And so I went to a doctor and I said, I'm really sleepy. I have diabetes. And she said, I don't think you do, but let's rule it out. We ruled it out. She referred me to a sleep neurologist, and the sleep neurologist said that I sounded like I had some sort of hypersomnia. He referred me to the sleep study. And this is, that just so super glamorous, oh my gosh, word finding difficulties. Super glamorous sleep makeup, sleep study, glam shot, etc. So, Julie, can you please go to the next slide?
Yes. Let me try.
Okay. So after my sleep study, I was diagnosed with type 1 narcolepsy at the age of 28. So I went over 20 years between symptom onset and diagnosis, maybe longer than that. But when I was diagnosed, I felt this incredible freedom and relief at knowing that I finally had a community, that I finally had a medical home, that there were treatment options. And I also started understanding my body more in a way that I just never had. And so one of the first things that I did when I got home was I ordered a book to learn how to sketch. And I had really bad cataplexy in my hands. And whenever I would get really excited, my right hand would just go like floppy. And I always thought, you're really lazy. Why can't you even hold a pen? What's your problem? Like, why are you, everything is so, shaky, just get it together. And once I finally knew that this had a scientific explanation, I thought, I don't even give a crap if my writing or if my drawing is shaky, because I have a neurological condition. Who even cares? I'm just going to do this thing because I really want to do it. And so I started sketching. It's not like my absolute number one favorite thing, but that was kind of the first time that I really let myself go back towards the creative path. And then I started realizing, okay, grad school isn't for me. I'm not going to be competitive. I have a really hard time reading. So I picked up with my sewing machine that had been dormant for years, and I started designing, and I started my brand Lysande. And this was this photo actually shows the very, very, very first ever Lysande headband. And they're very different now, or the actual structure of the headband is very different now. But this was like a selfie I took, and it was, 2 minutes off the sewing machine, and I was just the happiest person in the world. And I knew that there might be something to this. And I knew that now that I had a diagnosis and I understood what was going on, I could maybe pursue or create a life that was more in keeping with what I wanted to do and what I was able to do than what I felt like I was supposed to do. And so as I started treatment, I wrote this haiku, which is one of my favorite things that I love it so much. And it just says, I watch the cats sleep more frequently than I sleep with the cats. And it was just this moment I had when I was looking at my phone and realizing that there were more photos of my cats on my phone than of photos that my husband had sent me of me sleeping with my cats. And so that was a really powerful moment for me after my diagnosis. And that was kind of one of the things that was like, okay, I'm starting to become awake again. It's not perfect. I need flexibility, but I can create something that I love and something that matters. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges, so I ended up leaving graduate school and pursuing Lysande full time. I'd say that one of the biggest challenges of having a creative job is, and being a sleepy person is maintaining a schedule. But I would also say that one of the best things about being a sleepy person with a creative job and being self-employed is that I don't actually have to keep a schedule. And so what this means to me, and what everyone else has said really, really, really resonates with me, because the one piece of advice that I would give to anybody who is trying to pursue a creative venture or pursue self-employment is that your limitations, your chronic illness or your sleepiness means that your path is going to look different from every single other person's path. And it's your job to quiet that noise. And I'm telling you this because this is something that I have to tell myself daily when I get on social media, when I get on Instagram, and I see other brands that are growing so much more quickly than Lysande. They have more money, they have more time, they have more resources in general. And it's not my reality. And it's probably, if you're watching this and you have chronic illness, it's probably not your reality either. And that doesn't mean that you can't create something that is beautiful and meaningful and that can help sustain you. And so that was really, that all of that kind of came out of this question. My first question when I was diagnosed was, how do I create a life that caters to narcolepsy so that I can be successful without letting narcolepsy run my life? Because that's the last thing I want to do, is to have every single thing I do be focused on narcolepsy. Now, let's be real, like I have to take a nap every day. And so that is, I'm constantly planning around it, but it's also something where I have the flexibility to do something that I love while still being a sleepy person.
Can you describe some of those things, these pictures? Because you've done some pretty cool things this past year, especially.
Oh yeah, it's been a fun year. So this photo on the top left is one that my husband took of me. It was the very first Lysande tag. And it was just like this huge milestone for my brand and for me personally. And we went out to a beach in Connecticut and he took this shot, and it's just, I need to get it framed. It's my favorite shot in the world. This is a photo of me. Next to that is a photo of me with my dad in the Galapagos Islands. We went snorkeling, or we went to the Galapagos Islands for 2.5 weeks and we went snorkeling. And so I'm still able to do so many things, even though I'm sleepy. I just have to be cognizant of my limitations. I have taken up photography since my diagnosis, primarily because I needed somebody to photograph my headbands, and I was the person that was around. And but that's something that has brought me a lot of joy and creative opportunities. And so this is a shot my husband took of me. I was shooting a seagull in Maine, and it's a cool shot. I should have included the shot. And then this was, I'm not going to go into the kayaking story. Maybe I can go into that on Instagram stories later. But this was after doing an overnight kayaking trip. I think I kayaked over 15 miles in like, what was it? Like 30 hours or something like that. So we kayaked out to an island, we kayaked around, we camped, we spent the night, and then we kayaked back. And I did it myself. And it was a really, really, really big win for me personally. And then this is me and my husband in the middle. And then on the right is me getting ready for the sleep-in. And it is a sweater that Julie has lent me, that her sister gave her, that says naps and snacks. And you can see like the full sweater on my Instagram, but it's pretty much the best sweater ever.
Thank you, Michelle. And I'm just thinking that we should have a sleep and adventure, travel and adventure, themed video meeting like this in the future. And then you can tell the whole kayak story, because it's one of my favorite stories too.
Thank you.
So, well, you're invited back for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I think so much of that resonated. Thank you. We're just going to move along, because I know we are going a little bit long, but I just love everyone's story so much. I can't stop. Brooke, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'll start kind of where we are now and backtrack, because I'm Brooke and I founded the Nap Nook, and I make these napping pillows that were a result of my narcolepsy, but just as much of because of a traumatic experience, very personal to me, that happened in 2014. And I was seeking a lot of therapy afterwards, and it came up a lot in therapy. do you think about suicide? And I always, no way, that would never be me. But I was trying to explain to my husband depression, and he was really having a hard time comprehending depression. So of course I'm Googling like how to explain to a man what depression feels like. But I came across this David Foster Wallace quote that I'll paraphrase here. But it's essentially about, a building on fire, and make no mistake about these people who leap from the burning building, that their fear of falling remains the constant. They're just as afraid as everyone else. The issue is that when the flame gets stronger, the fear of falling becomes less scary than the flame behind them. And I read that and I just cried. So I went into therapy the next time and I said, I'm not suicidal. I've always said that, but this quote really scared me because I want to make sure that flame is in check, right? I think we've all kind of felt like that a little bit, like, no, I'm not. But there's definitely always this flame, and that flame is my narcolepsy, and having to look at the future and know that I have to do this every day, right, is that flame. So that was our goal, just to make sure that that flame stayed at bay. And she suggested a hobby, and I was so like annoyed. You don't understand narcolepsy. I don't have time for a hobby. But I ended up, my hobby was woodworking, and I really enjoyed woodworking, and I built a lot of different things. And my Instagram, I think, has some on there. But woodworking became like too much energy, and especially like in the heat and stuff. But I had this sewing machine I had bought on Amazon, because I'm an addict on Amazon, that had sit unused since I had purchased it the year prior. And I started teaching myself how to sew with nothing in mind of what I was going to sew, and just started sewing pillows. And when I would get in front of that machine, my head would just clear, and the whole like noise of the world just shut off, and it was peaceful. So when I first came up with this pillow, I loved it, and it was so comfortable, and I would nap with it, and I just wanted to make more. And I had so many, and I would gifted them to my dad, my nieces, my nephews, my mom. Anyone who knows me and is close to me received a gift napper. And I realized one day that people that suffer from depression sleep a lot. And I made it a mission to try to get my nappers out there as gifts, because the end of this David Foster Wallace quote is that the difference is there's no one on the sidewalk. They're yelling, don't jump, right? So I thought, maybe if I get these nappers out there as gifts, and someone's suffering from depression and they're having a hard time, that will be that reminder of who cares about them and who they should call. So I target market to everyone, but there's kind of this secret underlying, we might sneak this like awareness piece out there, because people are depressed and they're sleeping. They have their pillow there, so maybe they'll remember whoever gifted it to them, and that someone cares and loves about them. Now, I don't have any memory of not having narcolepsy at all. My mom says that I was probably 5 or 7 when I started showing signs, like just sleeping a lot. But my childhood memories consist of just being sleepy, not feeling well, and terrified to sleep in my bedroom. And I was the youngest at the time of 4. I now have a little brother that's 12, but at the time I was the youngest of 4 and the only girl. So sleeping with mom and dad wasn't like the best thing they wanted. But they had this long hallway in their house and their private bathroom. And I can remember my mom being angry with me because she would catch me sleeping in their bathtub, in their private bathroom, because I was so scared to sleep alone in my bedroom. And it was because I know now, auditory hallucinations. So I grew up, and I remember them trying to wake me up to go to school and just not being able to wake up, but being in trouble or yelled at for not getting up to go to school. And I quickly learned in an early age that like a stomach issue, like if my belly hurt, it was taken more serious and feeling tired. And this actually progressed to a point where I had a colonoscopy at the age of 18 because I would tell every day my mom that my stomach hurt, because when my stomach hurt, there wasn't anger about not going to school. But I actually had to stop going to high school, drop out, get my GED at about 16 or 17. I don't really remember. I had all A's, 1B, so I was almost a straight A student, but I was failing because of attendance. And meanwhile, I'm just diagnosed with depression, and my brothers and my family just think I'm lazy. And the guidance counselor had me take a pre-GED test, and she said I made a perfect score on it, so maybe I'm just bored, so we'll get her in college. And of course, the college thing didn't work out because I was just extremely tired, and I started working my first job at a corporate job, and I was a receptionist, but I would sleep all the time. All my PTO was always used for naps or late for work, and my boss at the time called me Sleeping Beauty because I would sleep sometimes for, that's funny, she did earlier. I think my longest stint was 19 or 20 hours. I didn't even wake up to use the restroom. And it was very disorienting when I woke up and it was dark and realizing that I'd slept, you know, almost 24 hours. And I just learned kind of how to, my corporate job was in project management, and we used, you know, just like process and streamline processes and stuff. But I've done this with my whole life to the point where if I don't have the energy to work and have friends, then my friends are my work or my coworkers. And just I kind of pile everything in to make them just so I don't have to have that much energy to do both. And I have a moment where I'm losing words. But sorry, just give me 1 second.
You're okay. How long were you in a corporate job before you stopped that?
18 to 33.
Wow.
I kind of did like a fake it. I'm 33 now, and I just left that, you know, with the Nook in February. But yeah, I did project management for a really long time. It was kind of like a fake it till you make it approach. I was really good. That's where I was going. I did that every day with my life, my entire life. I always had to work smarter and not harder because I did not have the time. That I realized that this was now a positive that came with my narcolepsy, that I had trained myself to do everything really efficiently and fast. Then I did that for a job for a corporate where I would just take their processes and make them Brooke, you know, efficient and fast. But I just couldn't do it anymore. And I started the Nook. But
when were you diagnosed with narcolepsy?
I was diagnosed with narcolepsy in 2011.
So at what age?
22-ish. Yes, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So I was diagnosed with narcolepsy in 2011, and it was only after I had told a girlfriend, don't you hate it when your body doesn't wake up when your head does? And I thought that was normal, and she looked at me and was like, Brooke, that's not normal. So now I always tell people that act like it's nuts that I have all of these symptoms and it took me so long to get diagnosed, that it's a lot like when you sit on your hand and your hand falls asleep. That's normal, but you don't ever tell your doctor that. So a lot of my symptoms I would describe the same way I experienced in my whole life. I never mentioned it to my doctor because I thought that they were normal. And that's, you know, sleep paralysis and auditory hallucinations, all of those things I put into that bucket. So in 2011, when I was diagnosed, my doctor actually did a very, she sugarcoated my diagnosis so much that I didn't realize I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. She said something along the lines of, your results indicate the levels like someone who would have narcolepsy, I think was kind of like her verbiage. But I was really in denial about it, and you know, the lifelong diagnosis, and I would tell people I have something kind of like narcolepsy. And my doctor didn't really give me much education on it. And it wasn't until this personal trauma that I had in 2014 where I just ended up isolating myself, and with stress, my narcolepsy became kind of just like worse. And I started seeking answers, like what is going on. And that's when I started learning more and more about like what my triggers are and things that are normal and not normal. And in 2016, I got married. And shortly after that, early 2017, I was completely bedridden. I couldn't get out of bed. No one was taking me serious at all. I was sleeping, couldn't get up. It was extremely, extremely hard. And that's when I ended up having a POTS diagnosis on top of my narcolepsy. But it's also when I realized how much any type of emotional impact, you know, triggers your narcolepsy symptoms. So, and that's when I started going to therapy and learning to sew and do all of this stuff, and realizing that all of the things that I used to think that made someone successful before, I was wrong. And all that is important right now is just to be happy and do something I love. And I love making pillows. And
I love your pillows.
Did I miss anything?
No, Brooke is amazing. Thank you so much. And I know you weren't sure about your other slides, so she did have some other slides, a little bit about.
Yeah, I was always so tired as a kid. All of my pictures of me growing up, I'm at my dad's leg, shy and tired. And I was held back in the first grade because I wouldn't talk to anyone but the teacher. I was just like, but I was always so tired. It's always kind of like just me half asleep on my dad's leg was all my pictures. And my grandma, who is a lot of my creative influence, I talked about earlier, in my favorite bedtime story.
Oh, your dog is so cute, by the way.
That's my dog sleeping on a napper of himself.
I love it.
And yeah, that's a porch swing I built for my parents, because I mentioned the woodworking, and 2 of my nappers on the porch swing. And that is the nap nook, and me and my husband on our wedding day.
Very cool. All right. Thank you, Brooke, so much for sharing.
Thank you.
That was pretty captivating. Oh my goodness. Okay. And our last but not least, we have Elle, who's joining us from Australia. And
yeah, I'm still awake.
still awake. It's morning for her. And I forgot to say this, Elle, is that when I transferred your slides over, I lost your really cool font. I tried to recapture your cool font.
Okay.
But I just want you to know that Elle had cooler fonts, which is so Elle. And I ruined it, but.
Okay, well, I've forgotten what I'm saying now. My story about narcolepsy. So I've always been like a sleepy kind of person my whole life, like even when I was a small child, but that wasn't to do with narcolepsy, that was just me. But when I started high school, that's when my symptoms started popping up. But it was all really like super gradual. So it took me a really long time to actually like realize that what was happening to me was not normal, especially because as you can see down the bottom there, I was extremely depressed, and like it wasn't very difficult to spot. So it was kind of difficult for me to tell whether my symptoms were like to do with my depression or to do with something else. But eventually I was falling asleep in my, like, what do you call them? HSC exams, which is like our school leaving exams. And so I told my mom that I fell asleep in like half of my exams. And she was like, yeah, maybe we do actually need to take you to a doctor. So once I went to the doctor, it was pretty easy. Like, I'm one of the lucky ones because my doctor is actually quite terrible and he'll send you to a specialist no matter what's wrong with you, which worked out pretty well for me. But yeah, so then I, got pretty promptly diagnosed with narcolepsy. There wasn't much of a question about it. But ever since my diagnosis, I've been pretty able to live a semi-normal life. I've, gone to a whole bunch of different countries. I've lived overseas, and I got my degree and everything. So yeah, that's my story. And on the next slide, I think, is some of my design work. So this is like a mixture of stuff. Some of my work, which is like when I worked at Chow, which is a local publication around here. I used to do all the design for that. And some of the from my more recent job, some advertising stuff and whatever. What am I saying about this? I can't remember.
I love seeing your advertising stuff. I don't think I've ever seen your career stuff.
Yeah, that's because it's not very interesting.
Okay, I think it is.
But yeah, I think the fact that I chose to go into a creative industry was actually a very good decision on my part, because I never would have gotten through university if I had have been doing something where I had to write essays and stuff. I did a minor in advertising, actually. My main degree was design in visual communications. And for that, you basically don't have to write anything the entire time. It's all based on assignments. And that means that you have basically a whole semester to work on a project, which makes it a bit easier, because you don't end up having that thing where you're struggling at the last minute. Well, I mean, you still do, but not quite so much. And you don't have to sit there writing essays, because it's never really worked for me. Anytime I have to sit down, looking at text for a really long time, it just doesn't work. So I was lucky to do something that actually allowed me to stay focused and attentive. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm
Elle, what's this one on all the way on the right in the middle? It's these girls and two of the eyes are closed and one's awake. What's that for?
Which?
The one on the right in the middle.
That's just I think just some illustration stuff.
So cute.
Yeah. Illustration's actually what I like to do the most, but hardly ever get an opportunity to do. But yeah, I think maybe go to the next slide. Because this is all my narcolepsy stuff. And also as I said, I love to do illustration, but don't always get a chance to do it. So it's been really great to have the opportunity to do that for all this narcolepsy stuff. And actually, it's funny because the whole reason that I, started my website and everything, basically narcolepsy related that I do now, all started because of my university major project, which was a booklet that had to do with narcolepsy. And that's when I started some of my, the one on the lower left, that's from that project. And yeah, that's when I actually started getting in touch with other people who have narcolepsy and stuff like that, because I wanted to make sure that all of the illustrations I was doing actually resonate with other people with narcolepsy. So I'm not just this is what narcolepsy is like, but it's only what it's like for me. I wanted to make sure that it was actually relevant to other people with narcolepsy as well. And through that, I joined the Australian Narcolepsy Group, which has been really important for me, to get those connections to other people. And we have meetups and stuff. And it's made me feel, I guess, more a part of the whole community thing. So yeah, that's like where the whole thing kind of started.
And then what about your illustrations in the middle?
Oh yeah, well those are the ones that I did for the Rising Voices of Narcolepsy program. And there are actually a bunch more of them, but obviously I didn't have that much space. But yeah, doing illustrations that are to do with narcolepsy is like my favorite thing in the world, because it's like, you know, I love to do illustrations and I love to communicate about narcolepsy. So yeah, that's like the best of both worlds. And yeah, on the right, it's just a bunch of different things, because like I really like to use a lot of different methods to do my, you know, creative blah blah. So I've got like a bit of collage up the top and like more like sketchy style of drawing, and then, you know, like little doodle down the bottom and mixed media and whatever. So yeah.
They're so cool. Well, we love your illustrations, and so thank you for doing them, because I think there's just the most groundbreaking, you know, beautiful illustrations, and so beautifully represent a lot of people's experiences. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I also did during the sleep in over the weekend, I turned some of my original illustrations from my university project into GIFs. So if you look on my website on the advocacy tools page or on my Instagram, you can find those.
And I can't wait to try them. We will definitely be posting them once I do that, once I get there. It's so cool. So cool. All right. Well, thank you, Elle. That was so what we had kind of planned, and we had planned to do some more like Q&A at the end, but I think that might be too complicated. But I think this has been really, really eye-opening to me, and I hope it's been useful to other people. Let's see if we can end the share, and then we can like see each other, hopefully, maybe. Let's see. I don't know what you guys see. I see Elle, but so I think if we just went around and I know Michelle had given, maybe this is too much on the spot, but we're going to try it. And if you want to pass because you're sleeping, you can't think of something, that's okay, because I hate thinking on my toes. But if you can think of one piece of advice that you would give someone else that's thinking about a creative career, or just thinking about how to manage their energy and their spoons and all that effectively, what kind of advice might that be? Does anyone want to start?
I have some.
Good.
I always tell people focus on the strengths that narcolepsy comes with. I know that the strengths aren't as many as the bad parts, but there are some strengths, and try to figure out what yours are because of narcolepsy, and try to think about those every day.
I love that. One of my favorite quotes is actually a Khalil Gibran quote, and it's on my website somewhere, where it says that you've been told that you are only as weak as your weakest link, but you're also as strong as your strongest link, or there's something beautiful about that. And that, you know, the power of the ocean, you know, you don't judge the power of the ocean by like one little bad part of it. Anyway, I'm not getting it, but thank you. That's beautifully said, Brooke.
I'll go. I always tell people to take one day at a time and to remember that life is not a race, and that it's not what you go through that makes you the person you are. It's how you react to the situation that makes you who you are. So, you know, there's many different routes. You can always take a, traditional route, or you can take an untraditional route. So.
I love that. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm glad this is recorded, I hope. Anyone else? Oh, Lisa, I don't know if we're going to hear you. I can see you.
Why does it not work?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. For some reason, I just have to talk a lot and then it'll pick it up. I just want to say that I think a lot of people have a certain perception about what a creative career is, but actually I think creativity can be found in lots of different sectors and lots of different jobs. So I don't think the shift necessarily has to be, you know, becoming a painter or a filmmaker or anything like that. I think those elements can be incorporated into lots of different types of jobs, and there are just new ones emerging all the time. Like I know you've got someone like Estefi doing data science, and like that can be hugely creative. So I think we're kind of expanding the idea of what creativity is also really helpful, so that people don't feel like, oh God, I don't have that in me, because I don't really believe that's a thing. I think it's about finding the right job in the right place at the right time.
And what gives you energy, right? So for me, like looking at spreadsheets just makes me tired, and numbers make me tired. So it's just knowing, yeah, that's a great point. And I think even for me, like my job is running, like it's always funny, I'm online dating, sorry. I always like to mention it. I'm single, if anyone knows any great guys. And it's just it's a funny thing to be like, I'm in management of nonprofit. And I think like, cause I don't exactly want to say online quite yet. I'm going with, anyway. So nonprofit management, like to me, that sounds really boring. But what I love about Project Sleep is there is so much creativity in choosing like which campaigns and, you know, how to bring this intersection of art with messaging and education. And so yeah, there's so much creative stuff. Usually I'm an ideas person. So people will be like, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And like, my point is like, yes, I've thought of lots of ideas, but implementing them is the hard part when you run a very, very small nonprofit. But it's a great point. And I'm sorry I made it about me and my dating life, but thank you, Lisa. Anyone else?
So I know for me, when I started doing my graphics, I felt a lot of, I guess, shame in a way about putting them on Instagram. I was happy to do them and kind of keep them in my sketchbook and keep it really private. I think because I had this fear, I mean, maybe in a way too, that it would make me sort of unattractive to firms or not hireable or things like that when, you know, I full well know my capabilities and things like that. However, so I guess in terms of advice, like just posting them and doing it and sharing my story and things like that has led me to be here on this panel today. So I'm really, really glad that I did. And I think there are probably a lot of other people who use art to sort of cope with bigger things that are going on in their lives. And in a lot of ways, it is good to sometimes keep some of it private and keep it for yourself, and you can safeguard that coping mechanism. But in other ways, it's really great because you open yourself up to this community of people, and kind of like Elle was saying before, like making your art or your release relatable to other people's symptoms and things like that. Like I know for me, my cataplexy is probably my biggest symptom, even maybe more so than sleepiness. It really takes the biggest toll on my life, and a lot of my art tries to capture kind of falling and what that looks like. But for other people, you know, that's falling into a bunch of different sort of levels of sleep and other things like that, or sadness or depression. And for me, sort of having my art speak to other people as well is something that I wasn't expecting, but I'm really glad that it does after sharing it. So my advice is to just, you know, if you're comfortable, or make yourself a little bit uncomfortable by sharing it, and you'll find other people to help make you feel comfortable after you've done it. So.
Oh my God, beautifully said. All the goosebumps. I feel like you told them what this question was going to be, and they had like hours and hours to prepare, but they didn't. So anyone else want to share?
I might just piggyback off what Eilís said. I think, yeah, sharing stuff online kind of, especially to me, I'm like the most introverted person you'll find. You can tell because I'm really bad at talking. But what was I saying? Yeah, just like start small. You can share anything, the tiniest thing that you want to share. And it just gets easier as you go along. And now I share probably too much of my life online. So
I feel like that too. I know that, even writing my book, I spent a lot of time alone with it. And so eventually put a sex scene in and, and I'm glad I did and like in the long run, but it was like really, really, really scary to realize like a month before I was publishing a book and that was like super vulnerable for me, but I think it was important for the messaging. And, but it started with my blog, and I think I gained the courage over time with my blog to be like, yes, this is all really important. So
Yeah.
thank you, Elle. And I know I feel like when I asked Elle to join, I was like, I know she considers herself an introvert, but I'm just going to ask anyway. And I know it'll be early in the morning, but I'm just going to ask. And so thank you. I know that doing something like this is even vulnerable for someone that is introverted. So thank you, my dear.
That's okay.
I would love to piggyback off of both of those and say that I think that, taking that jump and getting your work out there is really important. And also, if you're thinking about starting a business, the most important thing is just to start. And I think it's easy to be self-critical, especially as a person with chronic illness. This is a problem. This is a problem. Like in the past, I've been really good at coming up with problems, but you're also really smart and really capable, and you have to be to have survived this long with a sleep disorder or a chronic illness. And so once you start, you're going to figure it out. And the big thing is just to start.
Yep. I think it's like I always think I'm just winging it. And then I realize like we're all just winging it.
Yeah, but you've also thought it out, like there's a very serious amount of thought that goes into it, even if it's because you've been like you're working in your zone of competence, even if you're winging it.
Thank you.
I think a lot of the time.
Anyone else want to add anything?
I think that something that you and I have talked about, Julie, is being focusing on solution-based communication. So like Michelle said, it's really easy for me to come up for excuses to not work, like maybe taking a nap or not sleeping. For me, it's like once I get going and I find a rhythm, I'm good. But sometimes I just need a push to get started. And that even today, like working in clay for most of my life, but pretty seriously for the last 8 years, like I'm still scared when I sit down to throw that mug after I haven't thrown a mug for a couple of weeks. My head still says, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I forgot. Maybe it's changed. So I think that what I heard from Michelle was being okay with talking yourself through these situations that hold us back. Like for me, like taking the leap to go to graduate school or to be a potter, was scary, but it was something that my family and I talked about, and my support group and I talked about. And so I think that building that core group of people that you can talk about your stuff with is really important to feel supported in your creative endeavors.
This is an award-winning production. I'm just going to say, you guys just covered so many great, important points. I think everyone has given something. So I think that is it. So I guess we will go ahead and say thank you. Oh, I did have a few more. Sorry, I'll just go really quickly back to these slides just to share a big thank you. I don't know if you can see this. I feel like my picture might be in the same place that this is on the screen. For the sleep-in this year, we set a goal of raising $8,000 from our beds. And that would be the biggest amount that a sleep-in had ever raised if we'd done that. And right now we are at 92% to that goal. And so, like I said, numbers and finances and spreadsheets really aren't my thing, but the money is super important to keep the organization going. So being 92% to our goal is amazing. And it is thanks to all of you for that. And I just also wanted to add that it is now officially Happy Sleep Awareness Week. So I hope that you have been inspired by this creativity and hearing from our panelists. And I hope that over this sleep week, you will feel inspired to share some of your creativity on social media. And you can continue using the hashtag of the Sleep In 2019 to continue connecting with this community, because I think that this is such an amazing supportive community. You guys have supported me through so much personally, and I love watching you guys interact and hearing each other's stories. So I hope this will be a great week where we continue to share our stories and know that our experience matters, and that we will change lives when we reach people one by one. So with that, I am going to thank our panelists one more time. Thank you guys for being here and giving your precious spoons. I know they're limited, and I know this takes a lot of them. So I will be sending you spoons in the mail after this. And with that, I will just say thanks again for everyone participating in the Sleep In and being here. And I'm sorry that I can't see your messages on Facebook. Hopefully this will be recorded and we will all be able to watch it later. And just like I have all these notes written down of little memes or whatever you call those things, or quotes that I want to make of all the great things that you guys said. So thank you again to all 7 of our panelists. And so we'll say goodnight to Lisa in Denmark, who will be going to bed soon, and have a wonderful afternoon and evening to our panelists in America. We have Alana, Ciro, Eilís, Michelle, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone, Brooke. And then of course, have a good day. Have a wonderful Monday to Elle. And I don't know if you guys can see my shirt, but it says Monday called, I hung up. So thanks again to everyone. And I hope this works, that I will try to sign out now. Bye.
Bye.
Yay.